All right. Welcome, guys. Looking forward to this episode today. But before we begin, we usually start out with an Apple podcast review. Today, I'm going to do one a little bit different. Had a guy join our Facebook community, the Journey of a Christian Dad Facebook community. And one of the questions on the survey is we'd like to thank the person who told you about this page. So his answer was I found it, had a 9-hour drive for work, and something, I believe it was God, said to look up Christian Dad on podcast, and this popped up. I've listened to 10 episodes so far and really enjoyed them. Like, that was the coolest thing. Like, apparently got to spend 9 hours with this guy while he was driving in his
Yeah.
car, and he got to hear guys like you and just and I don't know what he got to listen to, so I haven't heard that yet. But he's really fired up to be
I
kind of
love it.
surrounded by some guys that are moving in a direction. So that's why I'm super excited to talk with you today. We've got on with us Shawn Tolleson. Shawn, Major League Baseball player. He had a role with extreme pressure. He got to be the closer for the Texas Rangers primarily, played for some other teams. And then nowadays he's on a mission as a health advisor, which I didn't know when we set up the podcast interview. And that's something that I actually want to talk about for my own self today as well. So welcome to the show,
Very
Shawn.
cool.
I'm fired up to have you.
I'm excited to be here. Yeah, I appreciate you inviting me to do this.
Yeah, well, fantastic. Well, let's start out. I always like to know kind of what your background was growing up, and that way people have kind of frame of reference of where you started, and you don't just go to be Major League Baseball closer from nowhere. So
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in Texas and born and raised and proud of it, and as all Texans are, I'm sure. Um, and I grew up in a Christian household, so my mom and dad met at church, raised us in that same church our entire lives. Feel very, very blessed to have been led by my mom and dad to the Lord. And if anything, it's really encouraged me and kind of showed me the importance of being a dad and being a parent in general, just how crucial of a role that is, not just for your child's life on here on earth, but their eternal future as well. So I take the job of dad very seriously. I think it's one of the highest honors, and I think it's the most important responsibility that men are called to is really being a father. So born and raised, played baseball my entire life, always loved it, never got tired of it, no matter how much I played. About my freshman year in high school, realized that, hey, I'm pretty good at this. And that's kind of when I really started kind of thinking beyond just high school with baseball. Started playing more, traveling more, got an opportunity to play on some really amazing select baseball teams back when select baseball was, not as everywhere as it is today. But ended up playing on a team based out of Dallas here that ended up having 6 Major League Baseball players on it, which is almost unheard of these days. So it was a really, really cool experience. Got to go in high school and play for the junior Olympic team, so represent the country. We got to go down and play countries like, South American countries in Mexico and Cuba. I got to do that 2 summers in a row and got to travel down and lost to Cuba in the championship both years. So silver medals both years. Those guys were good. As you can imagine, they were
yeah,
really
heck
good.
yeah.
They were as good as it gets. Then I went to Baylor. Part of my story, I became a Christian at 15. And that's really when I just dedicated my life to the Lord. And I really kind of understood exactly what I was getting myself into. And it was very soon after that my eyes really opened up to a young lady in my class who was already following the Lord. And that's my wife today. So we started dating when her dad said it's okay to start dating, which was when she turned 16. And we've been pretty much inseparable since then. And she really wanted to go to Baylor University down in Waco. And I could find no reason not to go there because they had a pretty good baseball team. So I went down there and got to pitch for Baylor. Had a really great time down there. Got drafted by the Los Angeles Dodgers as a pretty late round draft pick. I was an exceptional high school pitcher and a very, very probably below mediocre college pitcher. But for some reason, the Los Angeles Dodgers took a chance on me as a late round draft pick. I used the entire signing bonus that I had to buy an engagement ring, and I was off to the races in the minor leagues, and just kind of never looked back after that.
Wow. Wow. How amazing is that to, at 15, find the Lord and then shortly after find your wife? That's amazing.
It's pretty cool. And it was pretty clear to me very early on, just how serious I was about her. And it's try sitting down with your mom and dad, and having a serious heart-to-heart discussion with them when you're taking your official college visits with a full ride scholarship opportunity, and you turn down other schools that maybe your parents thought were better opportunities, bigger schools. And you say, yeah, I think I just want to go to Baylor because my high school girlfriend wants to go there. So it's, interesting conversations, but when they ask me like, are you sure about this, girl? And I'm like, yep, I'm sure. And they're like, okay,
Really?
go
They
for it.
just
Yeah.
went with it.
Well, they loved her too. There was no
Yeah.
reason not to. So.
Yeah. I find that sometimes parents try to steer as opposed to guide and them take the wheel. And at some point, you got to turn the wheel over to the kids.
I think that's something that's happening more today than it did. I think parents are doing too much steering, right? And, really scripture doesn't tell us to steer. It really tells us to be the guides, to be the lead, right? But not steering. There's a big difference. So you're not standing behind your kids, driving them in a certain direction, but you're leading them there. And I think more times than not, your child's going to be more likely to follow in the right path if you are also going in the right path. So the whole lead by example thing couldn't be more true for a dad, in any area of your life.
So there's a few local guys that I know with a similar story. It sounds like yours, other than the baseball part. Maybe they got a professional soccer thing in there,
Mm-hmm.
but not baseball. But nevertheless, uh, became Christians at a young age, had a great upbringing, married a high school sweetheart. And for a while, I didn't really know any of those people. And it's just phenomenal to have people like you in my life and be able to step into that a little bit and uh, see where they're a little bit more advanced in certain areas and be able to ask questions. And you mentioned lead and guide and like, hey, help me out a little bit here. What'd this look like when you were here? And
Absolutely. And God's given us all a story. And for so many years, from an outsider's view, it almost looks like I had the perfect childhood. I lived in a nice house. My dad had a good job. I went to a good school. I met a beautiful girl at a young age. We fell in love. We got married. We've got beautiful kids and 2 golden retrievers. It's like that kind of, I live a half a mile from the house I grew up in. I'm just like that hometown kid. Got to play for the Texas Rangers, my hometown team. It's kind of a fairy tale story. And for years and years, I felt like Satan was kind of lying to me that, I don't have a powerful story, right? There was no abuse in my home. There was no rough upbringing. There was no, I didn't have to get over drug use or being an alcoholic or anything like that. And it was such a lie because my story is a huge testimony to the faithfulness of the Lord. And, it just shows like this is an example of God's intentions and the fruits that can come from that. And so, I've really, God's really used that story to impact people. Just like you said, I was on a guy's retreat with some guys from my church, and one of the guys that goes to my church, he did not grow up in a home like I did, and we've got kids all the same age, and we had a lot of conversations just like what you're talking about, like what did it look like in your home, XYZ. So to have be able to have that conversation and share with that, and is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the way you said it. And that's exactly when I run into people that have had that experience. I'm like, I love the joy that just radiates from them. And it tends to trickle down throughout their whole family. As you know, our kids
Yeah,
see us and emulate us and
absolutely.
want to be like us. So I
And
just love being around people that have that are just full of joy. And it tickles me when people say, hey, you're one of those guys for me that radiates joy. I'm like,
well,
and I aspire to be.
and it's not like, one thing that we're never promised from God is an easy life, or a life that's absent from adversity. And like, I'll be honest, I mean, my life kind of was absent from adversity for a really long time. And then it hit me, you know, just like it may have hit other people before me, but you kind of have to be ready for it. I don't know that I was ready for it, but it's those times where you're like, okay, this faith that I've been saying I had since I was 15 years old, do I really have it? And it was really those times. And, my spiritual maturity has grown exponentially in the last 5 years than it did the previous 15 years.
Wow.
And that's because of the adversity. And, the Bible says that God uses these trials and tribulations to refine us. And I can say with, absolute certainty that he has, and he's used it, and it hasn't been easy. In 2015, I was pitching for the Rangers. I was the closer, and I was having a kind of a breakout season. I had a successful season kind of under the radar the year before with the Rangers. But in 2015, got to fill into the closer's role and was closing out games at a pretty high rate and high success rate. And kind of that invincible kind of feeling, where you just go out there and things are just happening for you. And it was at the end of that season, last game of the season, that my parents wanted to have all the, I've got an older brother and older sister. They called us over to the house, wanted to talk. And my dad kind of shared the news that he had been diagnosed with 2 forms of stage 4 cancer.
Oh my.
And so he was given 6 months to live. And that kind of shook me. I mean, not kind of shook me, that really shook me. My dad was, as you can probably hear just from the first part of my story, my dad was a very integral part of my life. He was a mentor type figure for me. And so that news, I mean, it hit me hard, and we went into the playoffs right after that. We had clinched the NL West. But it was, looking back, I actually never pitched successfully again after that. Like, my entire career, really never pitched good again. And I acted strong, right? But I was hurting. And it was kind of through that experience with my dad, and then through my own kind of experience through injuries. Once that news hit me with my dad, I think my stress levels just kind of skyrocketed, and my health, despite my efforts, my dad instilled it in me work ethic at a very young age. I mean, really young age. My dad was an extremely hard worker, and he valued hard work. He always told me, I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care if you dig ditches. I don't know why that's always what he said, but I don't care if you dig ditches. I want you to be the best. And I want you to always give everything you have, right? As if you're working for the Lord and not for men. And so I always had a great work ethic, and all through professional baseball, I think that's kind of, it wasn't always my talent that carried me where I was, but it was definitely my work ethic. But as I continued to work harder and harder and harder and harder, and when this news hit me, I think I started working even harder and harder and harder, almost like as a stress reliever. And without a doubt, I overworked. And that's kind of a new concept in the health community and world, and especially in the athletic circles, is really overworking, right? You're overexerting yourself. And because of that, as a result, my health kind of spiraled out of control. I mean, I started putting on very unhealthy weight despite, 2 or 3 hour personal training sessions and eating organic green smoothies all day long. Like, the weight just kind of piled on. Um, and it just happened. This happened over the course of about 2 years, and my body started hurting. I could barely roll out of bed. I seriously felt like a piece of plywood just getting out of bed every day. I'd stand up without a shirt on and couldn't see my toes. Like, that's how bad it was getting. I was pushing close to 250 pounds. And, just for some, perspective, I'm about 190 pounds today. And it took a toll on my baseball career as well. But so this was my wake up call, and I think a lot of us in our life, especially with our health, at some point you've received some kind of wake up call, and maybe you haven't yet, and you will at some point. This was my wake up call. It was kind of my dad. My dad was dying, and I wanted to do anything I could to, save him, right? Give him a fighting chance. My baseball career was definitely dying right in front of my eyes. And I wanted to do anything I could to kind of salvage that. So I started kind of thinking outside the box with my health. The concept, maybe harder is not better. Maybe more is not better. And I started just focusing more of my time and energy on things like stress management and sleep and recovery and nutrition and supplementation. And it's pretty amazing. I went and sought out some advice from some functional medicine doctors around the country, and got some testing done, and, kind of did a deep dive on my genetics. And a lot of things were pinpointing why this was happening, why my body responds to stress like this. And I was able to fix it, I was able to fix it, and that kind of stirred my affections towards optimized health and helping others do the same thing, because I couldn't have been the only person who was struggling, right? I could not have been. And I know that. And our country's in a pandemic, a health pandemic, really. And there's a lot of people who are going through exactly what I was going through. I did a lot of research for my dad as well. And he, he took to it. I was like, hey, you should eat like this. You should do this. You should do this therapy. And he did it. He ended up living for about 4.5 years after his diagnosis. And that was such a blessing from God, because he was able to see in that 4.5 years, gosh, I bet he saw 6 or 7 more grandkids get born. And I mean, like, what that was, that's what he lived for, those grandkids. He ended up passing away September 2019. And really, when he passed away, that's when my mind shifted, and I said, how can I do this for other people? I officially retired from baseball at that point, and hung it up and decided I'm going to pursue this. I want to help other people get healthy. And so in January 2020, right after that, I launched Tolleson Health Advisors, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
Wow, there's so much there.
Yeah, I think I talked for like 20 minutes.
No, that was great. I didn't want to interrupt. There's 250 pounds for an athlete, or 250 pounds for an athlete, 60 pounds over your current weight. Like, unbelievable to think that it would go that far in the wrong direction. And seeing you now, most people aren't on YouTube watching this, but seeing him now, he looks like the guy that you don't want to go compete with athletically right now. So he looks like he's ready to go. The death of your father, and that's just a couple of years, a year and a half ago now.
Yeah. Yep.
The grandkids being able to, hey kids, do you remember grandpa?
Mm-hmm.
Some of them would have, had he died in a shorter time frame, answer that question, no. So
he's yeah. And my dad was so intentional with his time. So he was a veterinarian, but when he was diagnosed, he practiced for a little bit longer, and then realized, if I only have a little bit of time left, like, how do I want to spend that? So he retired from doing that, and was really lived life on a mission during his whole cancer diagnosis. He did things that didn't make sense. And I think as Christians, as fathers, as most of your listeners are, like, if we want to have an impact, if we want to have a gospel impact on our community, we have to do things that just don't make sense to the rest of the world. My dad was really good about doing that. We have to, so, just like a little example, my dad decided when he retired that he was going to start visiting people in the hospital and writing them cards, handwritten cards. And if you knew my dad at all before his diagnosis, he's not the guy to write handwritten cards. He's kind of rough, tough guy, but he's writing handwritten cards and he's visiting people in the hospital. And he'd walk into someone's room after they had maybe they had a appendectomy or some kind of day surgery. And my dad would walk in and check on them, and they'd be like, "What are you doing visiting me right now? I should be visiting you right now." He's like, no, I'm good. Kind of the power of positive thinking. But so that's what he did. And when he, in his last couple years living, he had a book made that was like a book of his life, which was really cool. And even my 1-year-old daughter, like, who never got a chance to meet him, but we've got it on a low bookshelf in our house. And she crawls over there, and every day she crawls over there, she grabs this book off the shelf and she starts just like flipping through the pages and pointing to the pictures. And it's just amazing, like the things that like how simple book can do. Last year for Christmas, and then I'll let you talk because I know I'm talking way too much here, but last Christmas, my mom was over at our house. And so we're doing Christmas presents as a big family. And we open up our presents, me and my brother and my sister, and it's like this leather bound book that she had put together. And they were letters that he had written to each of us during his chemotherapy treatments. So instead of just sitting there and reading a book, or, nowadays what people would probably do is just sit around on their phone or iPad or watch a movie like most people were doing, he sat there every chemotherapy treatment for 4.5 years and wrote letters to me and my brother and my sister. Wow. And so to be able to just grab that off the shelf and open it up, sorry, I'm getting emotional. It's pretty cool.
Oh man, feel free to continue. We just had Todd Stottlemyre on, and he was talking about his dad as well, and his dad passed recently also, about the same time frame.
Yeah, I remember I listened to that when you sent it to me. So,
oh, thank you for listening to that. Yeah. Hopefully that maybe did something for you, not knowing that this was going to be something we talked about, which I'm glad we are, because Father's Day is coming up, so this will get released right around Father's Day.
It is coming up.
Yeah. Very so cool. The rest of the world may not remember Father's Day, but you and I just did. So
there you go. There you go.
Oh man. So yeah, love the fact that we're honoring your father at this time and learning some wisdom from him and what he did intentionally. So the handwritten notes, intentionally caring for others that were kind of down and out, even though he was in that spot himself. Yeah. There's a guy earlier today I was going back and forth with, and he runs a really large company. And one of the questions he asks himself every day, he sets an alarm at 6:20 in the morning and feeds him these 3 questions. And the first question he asks himself is, what will you do today that will impact the most important people in my life? What will I do today to impact the most important people in my life today? And I can see your dad asking himself that question every day.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think dads in general, and I'm talking about really like the young dad of today. And I'm one of them. And I'm trying really hard not to be one of them. But I think there's a lack of, maybe intentionality is the right word. Dads are expected to show up. If you're a good dad, you show up. And I think that's a good step one. But if all you're doing is showing up, you're missing the most important part. Because it's about these conversations that you have with your kids. Showing up is good, but what I see so much are these go with the flow, pushover dads that just kind of do what they're told. And I love my wife, And I think women are the most important part of the household, but the Bible tells us as men that we should lead our families. We need to lead our household. So what the heck does that mean? We need to be an important part of these decisions that are being made for our family. We don't need to just do what we're told, right? We need to seek out God so that we can make the best decision for our family, to make sure that it's within God's will for our family. We need to lead our wife as well. She doesn't need to be leading you. With our kids, like, you need to be steering conversations of faith with your kids at a very young age. And I think so many dads are just missing that. I think sometimes we get so burnt out on going and the busyness of balancing work and life and family and marriage, that it's easy sometimes to just check the calendar and see where you need to be and just be there and show up. But if that's all we do, we're missing it.
Yeah. So you're 33,
Yep.
6-year-old boy, 4-year-old boy, 1-year-old daughter
Mm-hmm.
who loves the book on the low shelf.
Yep, that's right.
And you said you included yourself in the group of younger dads that aren't as intentional as they should be.
Yeah, I did. And because it's easy to be. My wife is organized and I am not. Okay. And for years, I used that as an excuse. Like, I'm just not an organized person. Like, I'll just kind of let her plan life. And, God's put some really, really wise men in my life since my dad passed away. And it's one of the things that they're speaking into me is no, like, you need to lead your family. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Modern Family. Have you ever seen it?
Yeah, I've seen that.
All right. So love the show, by the way. Like, I crack up. I still like to watch reruns of it. But like Phil Dunphy, he's like everybody's favorite character, right? And if you don't think about it, he seems like a great dad, But as a Christian man, you got to really ask yourself, like, is he a great dad? He's there. He shows up. He's buddy. He's a pal. He likes to have fun, but he's not a great dad. He's not a great dad. He doesn't have any difficult conversations with his kids. He doesn't discipline his kids. He does what he's told from his wife, and he goes where he's supposed to go, and he shows up when he's supposed to show up. Period. That's it. And I want nothing more to be best buddies with my kids, right? But that you can't just be buddies with your kids.
Yeah. That's a struggle that I've had. They're daughters. They're cute.
I'm struggling with that now too. I know.
That is a challenge. And sometimes my wife is quick to discipline, or I give them a little bit more rope. A lot of times dads will give them a little bit more rope, but my wife said, "Why don't you discipline?" I'm like, "I don't get too many opportunities." I'm like, and so from time to time I'll recalibrate and say, "Hey, why don't you let me take the lead on this one? And if, I'm not doing it, let me know."
Yeah.
Let me know. Like, I know you want to jump in and you want to get all over them, but give me a chance. I'm like, it's not that I'm not willing, but you're at the 5-second mark and jumping in, and I'm more at the 1:20 mark or 10-minute mark.
No, it's a valid point. I'm starting to notice just how different I am with her than I am with my two boys. So I never got spanked as a kid, but my dad would thump me. like he would just like thump me on my arm or my ear or my head. And it was like this powerful, like, from another world thump. And it was the worst thing in the world. Like, for whatever reason, it didn't even really hurt. Something about that. And I don't know why. I guess we grew up to be like our parents a lot of times, but so when I was disciplining my kids and trying to like rear them up to know right from wrong, and I would do this, and I would just like give like the lightest little flick on their ear, and it would just end their world. It was just like the worst thing ever. And even to this day, like if my 6-year-old, 4-year-old like step out of line or talk back to their mom, like there's really no hesitation from me. It just happens, and they know it, and then they understand it, right? But now as my daughter starts to like, if I try to teach her right from wrong, like I think it was this morning. It was this morning. She's trying to open the under the sink cabinets, and she's like grabbing the dishwasher detergent little pods, and I'm like telling her, I'm like, no. And my wife is like, how many times are you going to tell her no before you flick her ear? I'm like, oh, I can't flick her ear. I just can't do it.
Yeah, she's too gentle for me to do that too.
I know.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I was saying the next thing that'll happen is the Tupperware game where she'll open the cabinet and just start taking Tupperware out everywhere.
That's already happened. It seems like we just let that go every time. We're cool with that. Can't kill her.
Yeah, there's not too much you can do about that game other than lock those cabinets up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's so funny. So have you had the conversation with your kids yet about how they're not as important as mom?
We've had conversations that are, no, the sentence wasn't put just like that. But we've had conversations on who do you love the most? and my boys know. They know it. They know the answer to that. And so, it's kind of weird to think about, but that's also a rare thing these days, is for parents to put their marriage above their kids. It almost sounds wrong even coming off my lips in today's day and age, but that's the truth.
Yeah. We had a spot. I don't know. My kids may have been your older boy's age, 6 and 4. Mm-hmm. And, had not really a heart to heart. Well, I guess it really was. It was a pretty matter of fact, authoritative conversation. Hey girls, I just want you to know, I love you so, so much. And you may think that you're more important than mom and I love you more than mom. And that's just not true.
Yeah.
Me and mom are a team. And no matter what you do, you're not breaking us. No matter what you do, me and mom are together and we're 100% going the same direction. Mm-hmm. Whatever she says goes. And then my wife chimes in, whatever he says goes.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
And they, no, that's not good. We don't like that. We understand, but just so you know the rules.
I love it.
And they look this confused look of, well, how do we change this? How do we affect the dynamic? How do we become the most important again? And they were just dumbfounded that just happened.
It's an important conversation to have.
It is.
Put that on my list of things to do.
And if you've got that domineering one, I don't know which of your three might turn into that one, or if you already know which one that is, but
that's my daughter for sure. I already know that.
Yep. Yeah. My youngest, man, she thinks she's the boss. And one time she went so far as to say, I want to be a mom. Oh, that's wonderful. It's a great thing to want to be someday. She says, how can I make that happen? I said, why do you want to be a mom so bad? Because I want to be the boss.
I love it.
And I want to be able to tell everybody what to do.
Uh-huh. So did you go explain to her how to be a mom?
No. At 5 years old, I didn't.
Okay. Wait a few years on that then. Okay.
Wait a few years. Yeah. We'll wait a few years on that. But yeah, that was her reasoning. It wasn't to have kids and love and cuddle and all that. It was, she wanted to be able to tell everybody what to do.
Love it. That's awesome.
So yes. Keep them in their place is a big thing. So you mentioned you kind of had the blessed life going through. Your schedule was, being a athlete, high school and everything. Your schedule's kind of given to you, what time to go to class. Being an athlete, they tell you what time workout is, where it's going to be for the most part. You get into professional baseball, it's absolutely dictated where, when, how, and kind of surrounded by the people you're going to be surrounded with also, because you're traveling and with the team. So when you said you didn't lead the most disciplined life, calendar wasn't necessarily the thing, because you never had to develop that skill. No. In large part because it was given to you. Me, I was a military guy. So I'm like, hey, this is wonderful. I don't have to pay attention to anything. I just have to show up.
Yep.
And then do whatever it is they tell me to do, no matter how difficult it is. But I didn't have to organize, plan, lead. I did have to lead the squad, but that was a different thing. You know, the exact orders were given to me as to what to accomplish. So that part was easy.
No, I totally relate to that. It's really from high school on. I just had people doing things for me. Even most college kids are like having to make their schedules and enroll in classes. Like I had somebody that just did it for me. Um, Made my schedule, enrolled me in the classes, got my books, delivered them to my front porch. And that's how I turned into a very undisciplined guy. Is I was just so used to being just showing up where I was told to show up. Um, I was reading a book. There's a book I'm reading, and I was reading it last night before bed, and it said, let me make sure I say this right. You should live your life by design and not by default. And when
Yes.
I read that, I was just like, gotcha. That was me. Like that was me. I was living by default, meaning that I was going with the flow. I was doing what I should have been done. There was no planning or intentionality or goal setting or discipline or routine or anything. I was living day by day. And it's probably been 6 months ago or so, but I, made a decision not to be like that. I'm going to live my life by design. So I've got a morning routine. I think a morning routine is just so important for a man. It's so key for a man. If you look at this most successful, I'm not talking about the best people in the world, not talking about the best Christians in the world. I'm just talking about most successful people in the world. They all have a morning routine. All of them. Like there was a research study done. They all do. And there's some common things in their morning routines too. So I've developed kind of a morning routine for myself that kind of meshes together my health and my faith and my productivity. And it's just kind of all of a mesh together of that. So it's good. I'm trying to, you may have heard this. I think I said this on a similar podcast, but I'm trying to instill in my boys' morning routines too. Very challenging. And school's about to be over, so we're going to go into summer. So it may be a better time to kind of start something like that. But yeah, we're working on it. And I've kind of created this morning routine for them that they can go through, and it consists of things like breathing, which is one of the most underestimated things that we forget to do. We don't breathe right. So I have them take these deep breaths in the morning. I have them pray every morning. I have them like a gratitude practice. So every morning they're writing down something that they're thankful for. And then they write down the name of somebody that they're going to encourage that day and how they're going to encourage them. They write down the name of someone that they're going to serve that day and how they're going to be helpful to that person. And then I think after all that, I think it concludes with chores. So that they've got a chore to do and they just knock it out in the morning, just get it done. So that's their productivity. They knock out their chore, then they knock out exercise, which, I trust me, I don't have a 6 and 4-year-old in there lifting weights, but, I encourage them to go outside and, shoot a couple baskets or nothing crazy. It's not me it's just moving their bodies. And yeah, that's kind of it. Oh, and then we do reading. So reading is kind of the last thing. We sit down and I've got a couple little 1-page kid devotional books, and they're not great readers. So I read that page with them, and it doesn't, it's my intention to do it every day. It probably doesn't even happen half the days at this point, but I'm trying.
Yeah, absolutely. That reminds me, I had my kids going on a morning routine, and it's changed up a little bit, but yeah, I had a gratitude journal for them, and it had different exercises in it, similar ones to what you're talking about. And I used to pay them a quarter every time they completed a page.
Oh,
They're super motivated by that for a short while.
Okay.
They counted the pages and like, I'll get $20 if I do this. I'm like, yeah, you sure will. And it'll take you 40 days or whatever it was. Like, oh, that'll be great.
That's
And
funny.
they did about 8 days.
That's awesome.
And then I started having to remind them, and I'm like, I'm not reminding them anymore. This is on
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
I'll
No.
remind them that they didn't get the $20 soon.
Yeah. Man. Well, that's, yeah. One thing I have learned about my 6-year-old is he is not motivated by money at all, which, later on in life, I think might suit him really well. But he could just care less about money. I mean, even if you're like, hey, I'll give you $2 if you clean my golf clubs. It's like, yeah, I'll clean them, but you can keep your money. Like, he just doesn't have it. And he's got this girl in his kindergarten class that he likes, and he wanted to buy her a present. And I was like, all right, well, let's go see how much money you have. And I think he had this is all the money he saved up from his entire life. He had like $13. So we found something that he wanted to get her. It was like $15. And I was like, buddy, if you get this for her, like, you're going to spend everything that you've ever had. He's like, it's fine. He just doesn't, no concept, just doesn't care about it. But another piece to that morning routine too is also taking time in the evening to kind of reflect on your day. Because I think God is always moving, and we move through life so busy trying to cross off all of our to-dos for the day and get our kids where they need to go, that we sometimes we don't remember. Like, we might notice it, and then we don't ever reflect on it. And so one of the questions that I have them think about, well, number one, what was the best part of your day? Number two, where did you see God today? So, and at their age, their answers are usually, by the way, this is the same morning routine I take myself through. So, but at their age, it's usually things like, the rain, the sun, the bird outside, it's little things. For me, it's usually in conversations. So, and if I don't sit there and actually reflect on it, sometimes I miss it. I miss what God's trying to do. God could be, asking me to say something, to do something, to have another conversation with someone. And if I don't sit back and reflect on it before I go to bed, sometimes I miss it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the nighttime reflection. So the nighttime can be the absolute destruction of people. So seems like when you find out about a professional athlete that did something goofy and is in the newspaper and maybe getting suspended or going to jail or something. When did it happen? Nighttime.
Yeah.
Nighttime. So yeah, we gotta defend ourselves at night. The other day, Todd Stoudemire, we're talking. He's like, "Man, I got to throw the armor of God on as soon as this podcast recording's over, because I know the devil's gonna come at me and attack me." And at nighttime, that's a time where he can come at us also, because we've been run down all day. We aren't refreshed. We aren't at our best. He, comes in the concealment of darkness, and
Mm-hmm.
if we take that time to pause, reflect, pray, that's a heck
Absolutely.
of a way to defend against the devil, and allowing those thoughts to come into our lives, or those actions then to follow through from the thoughts.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. My problem is, when I played, there's a lot of downtime. When you're a professional baseball player, you waste so much time. There's just so much time in the mornings before games, so much time in the clubhouse, like while you're waiting for the game to start, so much time when you get back to the hotel after a game. And that's, if I had two regrets from playing, it wasn't ever anything that I did on the field. My number one regret is probably not having more conversations with guys who did not know the Lord. That's my number one regret. My number two regret is wasting so much darn time. Just wasting time sleeping too much, wasting time watching TV in a hotel room too much, wasting time shopping on my iPad too much, when I had so much time. Like right now, I feel like I don't have any time. I really don't feel like I have time, and I'm still finding more time for the Lord than I did back then. But just, I think back, and I try not to be regretful, but it's hard not to look back and think, if I had used that time, where would I be in my spiritual walk today? if I had used that time over 8 years of playing professional baseball. I wasted time for 8 years, lots of time. I mean, I probably wasted 4 or 5 hours a day for 8 years straight. And it's like, oh, like, where would I be today? Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? I had a similar period of my life where I managed a retail sales force for uh, electronics and furniture, and I ran a large retail store when those things existed, and all I focused on was sales and sales development. And then, at the end of the day, at the end of the 12-hour shift or whatever, I was done.
Mm-hmm.
My wife's like, "Hey, you're so quiet when you come home." Like, yeah, I did all my talking already. I'm done. And there was no faith development there. We had struggles having kids. There really wasn't. And then once we realized we were having real troubles having kids, that's when our lives really started to change. When I realized that we wanted kids and all
Yep.
that type of thing, I'm like, oh my goodness, I've wasted 8 to 10 years. I call it the wasted 10 years.
Yeah.
Did I learn how to talk to people and sell things in a high level way? Yes. Outside of that, that was the only real skill I developed.
Right.
But although serves me well now working with podcasts and community and things, so that it served me well now. But
Yeah.
man, what could I have done if I'd have been intentional with that time? So yeah, I hear you. That
Yeah.
that one's a
I'm
that
sure.
one's a
I'm sure a
stinker.
lot of people can relate to that. So
So on your health side of your life,
yeah.
you're being a health advisor, very interested. You've been fantastic about sending me some texts with some helpful tips and everything. So I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you've got kind of a 12-week plan, I noticed, which I also kind of live my life by a 12-week plan, kind of measuring posts in 12 weeks. This is where I want to be in just a couple of key areas. So not
Mm-hmm.
20 key areas, but usually 3 areas is what I focus on. There's other things that I'm doing and other things I'm going towards, but I'm only measuring a few. That way, I don't go 12 weeks and go, wonder what happened there. I didn't
Yeah.
really move the needle. I didn't. So it's interesting on the health side. I saw 12 weeks. I'm like, hey, this is
Mm-hmm.
syncing up with already how I do things.
There's a lot of magic in the number 7 and the number 12. And I don't mean magic, but they're very, 7, 12, 40, very biblical numbers. So I try to use these numbers as often as I can. So, yes. So I'm a health advisor. Most people are like, I've never heard of a health advisor. And that's probably because I kind of just coined the term myself. The reason is, and, people ask me, is that the same as a health coach? Yeah, kind of. It is in a way, but I wanted people to kind of think about their health in a different way. Like if you've ever used a financial advisor,
Mm-hmm.
you outsourced your money to someone who you thought could do a better job of managing it because your money is that important to you. Right. And so the question I ask people is, is your health any different? Right. What if you could outsource your health to someone else who could manage it for you? You're still responsible for it. It's just like your money. You're still
Mm-hmm.
responsible for it. If you want to pull all that money out and go buy a boat, go do it. There's nobody stopping you. So you're still responsible for it. But what if you could outsource it to somebody who's constantly monitoring it, holding you accountable to it, and helping it grow? And that's the exact same thing that I do with my clients with Tolleson Health. You mentioned a 12-week program. It's been really, really great. We're wrapping the 12-week program up. It's been a lot of work. It's been successful for people, but we're no longer taking any 12-week clients at this time. I've got a 12-month program, which is awesome. So this is where I call it the optimized program, because in 12 months, me and you are best friends. That's a lot of engagement over an entire
Yes.
year. More than half the people I talk to about a 12-month program decide that they are not interested after I tell them it's a year commitment, because nobody wants to commit to a year of anything, especially with your health. We live in such like a Netflix world where we want to go month to month, no contract, pay as you go. And it doesn't work, right? To really establish an entirely new lifestyle with new habits that don't seem hard, where you don't have this decision fatigue, or you feel like you're missing out on life because you're not eating something. For me to like help you walk to that point, it takes a year. It takes a year. I've walked, I think last year, I think I took 16 people through the full year. And I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if, that was kind of my first year doing the year program. And I didn't know if, okay, that's the end of the year, sayonara, or what was going to happen. And 14 of those people asked if they could sign on for another year. So I developed a second year of the program and built out a whole timeline for a second year. So just kind of continually going with that. And I'm up to 20 clients now in this year program, which is the ceiling that I had drawn for myself. And I just, this could not be, but none of this could have happened without God, like none of it. And it's been so, affirming for me, just knowing that I'm doing exactly what God's called me to do right now. And I've met some of the most incredible men and women that I've ever met in my entire life doing this. But I've hit the ceiling now. And so now the question is, we've started a waiting list for this. And, the idea of, I want to have as big of an impact on people's health as I can. So how do I do that? So I'm in the process currently of building out a 40-week system that's going to allow people to, number one, it's going to be much more affordable. So people there's not this one-on-one engagement with me, but it's more delivered as you go through it as you go. So that's something I'm currently working on that I'm super excited about. Another thing that we have coming up in July for the first time ever, we're going to be doing group coaching. So groups of 7, I told you I like these 7, 12, 40 weeks. So we're going to be doing groups of 7 where we do a once monthly live call, just, where I go over a certain topic, a couple of notes that I'll share with you. And then it's like, open it up, question and answer, like, let me help you set some goals this month. And this is ongoing. So it's not 3 months. It's not 6 months. It's not a year. This just go. When you want to hop out. No problem. But the idea is that accountability is just such a lost art. And if we can create these groups of 7 and you're getting to engage with me, I'm getting to help walk you through your health, answer your questions, guide you to better sleep, supplementation, testing, exercise recommendations, you name it. But then we create this group of people who really deeply know what each other are going through, and they know how to encourage each other. And we have messaging set up so that they can encourage each other and ask questions, and I can answer these questions in a group setting. It's like a built-in accountability. One of the problems with people's health is nobody wants to keep anyone accountable to their health. But if we can find a group of 7 people that want to do that, then power to you. I'm excited about that because I've talked to so many people that I want to help who just can't afford the year program. And this is kind of a way for them to get plugged in and involved. So I'm very excited about that. And then the last thing is a fasting community. So fasting is another lost art. And it's another thing from scripture that we read about.
Scripture, yes.
We read about it all the time when we're reading scripture, and then we don't ever ask anything about it. We just read over it and we're like, oh, all right, well, that was interesting. I guess that doesn't pertain to us anymore because we live in 2021 and we have 24/7 access to food and 3 grocery stores down the street and a 7-Eleven. And it's just like, we weren't created as a species to have this kind of access to food. Fasting is something that we are supposed to be doing. And not just from a spiritual perspective. Like, I'm talking from a health perspective. The number one way to lose weight, to burn fat, to reset your metabolism, to balance your hormones, to increase your energy levels, to get rid of damaged cells, to prevent disease. Like, it sounds like a coverall, but I'm not making this up. It's fasting. And there's so many different ways to fast. And that doesn't
I'll jump in for a quick second there and interject.
Yeah.
It was funny that you brought fasting back up in my life. I had been doing it. I don't know what exactly changed it, workout routine, schedule, something changed how I was doing that. And I got on the scale, hadn't been on the scale for a while. I'm like, I'm up 6 pounds. What changed? And I started doing an audit of the different foods and things I was putting in my body and the exercise I was doing. I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I guess I don't run as much as I used to, and I'm now more doing other body weight exercises and other weightlifting exercise and things. I'm
Yeah.
like, maybe that's it. Maybe I'm putting muscle on. And then kept thinking about it, and I'm like, that seems like my physical activity is still pretty high. The food's still pretty much the same. Like, what the heck is going on? And why can't I shed some weight? I'm like, and then you came through and I started getting fasting information. I'm like, that's what changed. That's what made the difference. That
Man,
was incredibly effective for me when I was doing it. And so anyway, feel free and
it's
continue. But yes, I
no,
endorse what you're saying.
yeah, it's incredibly effective for everybody. This isn't something that, like when I work with my 12-month clients, I take them through and I like run genetic reports on them, and we analyze their genetics and look for these different things to help kind of point the compass in the right direction to like get them to optimize health. With fasting, it's not like that. It's kind of like, all right, everybody should be doing this. And there's lots of different ways to fast. Fasting does not mean suffering. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to even be hungry to fast. And there's so many different methods, and I've tried just about all of them. And I've created this fasting regimen for myself. And I just want to share that with people because it's making a real impact. Like I'm getting kind of like the first thing you read on this podcast, like you get good feedback from somebody that
Mm-hmm.
you had an impact on someone's life because of what you do. And I'm starting to get these messages through the fasting community of people reaching out and being like, and I haven't even been doing this that long, but people reaching out and being like, wow, like this is making a difference in my life. And that's why I'm doing it. It's completely free. I don't charge anything to be a part of this community. You just join and just start doing it, and just keep doing it, and you will notice a difference. You will notice a difference. So to join that, by the way, I'll
Yeah,
just mention,
that's my next question. I say, how do they join? And we'll also
yeah,
put it in the show notes also.
yeah. All you do is text fast. Just text fast to 77513. So just pull out your phone, text fast to the number 77513, and that's it. All of my fasting recommendations, videos, PDFs, everything is going to be delivered through text message to you, straight to your phone. So there's no app you need to download. There's nothing like that. It's just going to come through text. People actually read their text messages over emails or app messaging or anything like this. So it's been successful for that reason. And that's it. Just follow the recommendations.
Yeah, no, it's been a really cool thing. So I'm glad that I opted in
Uh,
on that, and I appreciate you setting up that whole program because it's been really a good experience, and will
it's been
get me back
fun.
into
And I've had
fasting
a
when I
lot
decide
of,
to flip the switch.
for people who watch golf at all or follow that, I mean, Phil Mickelson in his interview, people ask him like, wow, this is incredible. You're 50 years old. What are you doing to be in the best shape of your life? He didn't mention paleo, keto, vegan. All he said is, I'm fasting every week. That's it. He said, every week I fast for 36 hours. That's all. That's all. And that right there, I mean, that opened up a lot of people's eyes and ears to the world of fasting and just the difference it can make. I've got a client that signed up this week for my 12-month program, and super, super excited to get him started and work with him. But he's lost about 100 pounds in the last, since January. So
Oh my goodness,
was that 5 months?
five
He's lost
months. Yeah.
100 pounds in 5 months. And when I asked him what he did, he said, I've been fasting. And I said, you've been doing anything else? No, not really. You've been exercising? Nope. You've been eating different foods? No, sir. I own a set of fast food chains. I said, so just fasting, huh? Yep, just fasting.
Wow.
And I mean, that right there, I mean, I'm like, and here he's coming to work with me. He's lost 100 pounds in 5 months and he wants to work with me. I mean, I almost feel, I feel very humbled, because he's ready now to take this to the next level and really start to optimize his daily habits and routines. You can't go your whole life and just fast and not exercise. And he realizes that there's a lot of things that that he needs to do, but a great step one is this fasting. It's a great step one.
I like to put some roadblocks in front of people that I work with before I start working with them.
Mm-hmm.
So they either do them or they don't. If they don't, then I knew that they weren't really serious about what they said they wanted to accomplish.
Yeah.
But when they get through those, I'm like, wow, you're a great coach. I'm like, no, you were motivated.
Exactly. That's
But
that's the story of what I do. It's exactly what I do. Everyone, you've got to be ready.
yes,
You've got to be ready. The people who have had that wake up call in their life usually are the most successful in my programs.
What was that book you mentioned you were reading last night? You didn't say the book, what it was, but I
The
recognize that.
The book is called Do Life Differently.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called Do Life
Who
Differently.
wrote that one?
Jeff Reeder. Jeff Reeder. I'd have to look it up.
Do Life Differently by Jeff. That works good.
I think it's Jeff Reeder. I think it's Jeff Reeder.
Okay. Got it. There's a company, Keller Williams, a real estate company, and that's one of their laws for their company. They call it a bold law. And I'm like, holy cow.
What's the law?
What, that sentence that you said earlier?
Do life differently?
Do like live bold, like be intentional,
Gotcha.
live bold. I'm like, pretty much direct word for word right out of their kind of list of laws for life.
Yeah.
And they've got kind of a neat mindset around things, and kind of that same God family business, God, wife, kids.
Yep.
So kind of a neat way to do it. Have you got any tips for anybody or ways to connect with you in the health advising side?
For sure. Easiest thing to do is to go to my website. It's just tollesonhealth.com. There you can kind of see the programs and see kind of what we've got going on. There's also a button you can click on my website to schedule a free, no strings attached 15-minute call with me. This is another way that I just try to open up my schedule to connect with people. So that's called the free strategy session. So just 15 minutes, and I hopefully can leave you with something valuable that impacts your life. Outside of that, I mean, on that same schedule, I'm a big guy with supplements. So I love to use supplementation in a very smart way. The reason is that we live in a world that demands supplementation for our bodies. The food we eat is like 20% as nutritious as it used to be. So like, actually, if you look at our food 100 years ago, it's 20% as nutritious as it is today. And that's all across the board. And everything around us is demanding our need for more nutrition. So, the Wi-Fi that's hitting my body right now is actually disrupting critical cellular processes that need to be happening in my body that aren't because of the Wi-Fi signal. It demands your need for more nutrients. The screen that I'm staring at right now is demanding my need for more nutrients. The cell phone signal around us, the fluorescent lights in our offices, the air that we breathe. I mean, there's just so many things that are demanding our need for nutrition, and supplements are a great way to really live an optimized life. So I like to help people kind of think through that too. So if you go to that schedule and free strategy session, there's also an opportunity to engage with me for a free supplement plan.
Cool.
So I'll put one of those together for you. It's just another 15-minute call where I just ask you some questions about how you're feeling, things that are going on. I know, like you, for example, like feeling a little tired,
Absolutely.
drained,
We talked about that.
Drained, a little bit of fatigue. So that would be like something I would ask you and try to kind of dig down on and put together a plan for you. And then I just extend my discounts that I get on supplements. I just extend that discount to whoever I connect with, just to make it a little bit easier for them to get them.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I look forward to talking to you about that and get more specific into what's going on with me.
Yeah, absolutely. There's, if you go to the bottom of my website too, you can fill this, I think maybe you just plug in your email address, and that you'll get all my newsletters, which have links to my blogs. So I'm constantly putting out blogs that have really helpful information that I try not to over science. So just make it easy to read, easy to apply with action items on things you can do. So that's another easy way to just get some free, valuable information. This next, I'm going to do a series of blog posts that are coming out, and I should mention it on this show because you're a dad podcast, but it's going to be the 5 things that you can do to secure your family's health. And I'm super excited about it because I'm actually going to go over some very practical things you can do to make sure that you and your wife and your kids are healthy and that you're leading them in healthy habits. Because we learn a lot from our parents. I think we've already mentioned that on this podcast. One of the things that we learn from our parents is how to be healthy, and more times than not, how to be unhealthy. So this is just, hopefully it's going to be a helpful series of blog posts for guys to be able to start leading their family towards healthier habits.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds great. I really like that.
Yep.
Yeah, it seems like that's something that I haven't been the greatest at, over my life. And I've been much more intentional about it the last 10 years. And it's been fun getting my body back in shape again and doing some of the races. And my kids are fired up. There's something called a Mud Factor run. It's maybe a 2.5, 3 mile run, something like that. I think for the adults, and I think the kids get to go a mile. But I told my daughter, my oldest, I said, hey, there's 2 girls. They're about the same age as you and your sister. I invited their dad, and I'm trying to get them, and I think they're gonna join us.
Nice.
And my daughter says, are you kidding me? Why would you do that? I said, well, why wouldn't I? Like, we have friends, like we get to go with them. And she goes, well, that's more people to compete with. How am I going to win?
She's competitive, huh?
Oh, Mike, I love it. At the age of 8, she is so competitive.
That's
so
awesome.
Competitive.
That's great.
So just hearing you talk and everything, you've got just kind of a calm, soothing, confident, not cocky demeanor about you, kind of similar to me. And I was thinking about Philippians 4:8. So Philippians 4:8 says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, dwell on these things. And so you mentioned in your morning routine what you do, and in the evening what you do. It's like the more that we think about those things, the less time we have that allows our mind and allow the devil to bring thoughts in that contradict with those things, the ways of the world and everything.
Yeah. I mean, you said it. I think, it's one reason I don't call myself a coach too is because when we think about coach, we think about whistles and yelling, and it's not my style, never has been my style. The scripture talks about men being meek, M-E-E-K, meekness. And it's kind of like, what the heck is meekness? And, some people think that meekness just means being timid. That's like not what it means at all. It means being calm, collected, controlled, and ready to absolutely explode when the time is right. It's like the ability to harness the power of God in a very controlled motion and to know exactly when God wants you to use that. That's what meekness is. It's not being timid.
I agree 100%. Like, I'm so passionate about that.
Yeah. And that's what I try to do. That's how I try to, that's how I try to carry myself in my life and in my work with people. Is I try to have this meekness, and that means that I'm patient. I'm very patient just in general when I'm coaching people, but I have this ability to go when the time is right to go. So if the time is right to push somebody, I can push them, but I'm not a go 100% of the time.
Can you think of an example where that came into play? You don't have to disclose their name. I'm not asking that, but just
with a client,
maybe with a client or whatever was on your mind when you're talking about that.
No, I can absolutely think of something that a couple of instances, right? And I again, I won't go into crazy detail, but definitely times with clients where we meet every month to establish some goals. And when I say goals, I don't mean these like check them off the box goals. These are, a goal would never be lose 10 pounds this month. Never. You might want to lose 10 pounds this month, but let me help you set goals that build a system so that you can lose 10 pounds and then you can continue in that direction instead of just saying, great, I lost 10 pounds. I could give you a couple bars and shakes to eat every day and you could lose 10 pounds. But what happens when you have to actually walk into the pizza parlor again? So yeah, I can think of some times where we've set goals for people. And I keep people accountable to these goals, and I ask, and if you give me excuses, a few times in a row, then that's when I go, that's when I go. But you kind of have to learn the personalities of the people you're working with as well. So some people really like to be pushed and want to be pushed and expect to be pushed, and some people don't. So.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So can you think of when you were maybe closing out a game, maybe it was the major leagues or maybe it was Baylor, where that mindset came into play?
Where I just was calm, collected. I mean,
or maybe where you had to become.
No, not really, not off the top of my head. I can think of some times where my adrenaline kind of was kicked into high gear. I was always very calm and collected when I pitched, even in very high leverage, high pressure situations. It's kind of another one of those things that my dad instilled in me is, right, never let your highs get too high and your lows get too low. And he never wanted me to walk through life as a roller coaster. And so, when I was on the mound, I was always expressionless. And you don't see that as much in baseball anymore. There's a lot of emotion being thrown out on the field. And it's fine. It's kind of actually fun to watch.
Right. I agree. Yeah, I agree. It is fun to watch when you see it.
It makes it a little more entertaining. But
we've got Yadier Molina here in St. Louis, and he's just so fun to watch because he's just
it's fun
joyful and loves the game.
Yeah, people are having fun. And when I pitched, you couldn't tell if I loved my job or hated my job because I was just like expressionless. But that was just kind of how I cared about my business. But yeah, there's a few times where, if there's like a brawl on the field, which I've been involved in a few of those, you kind of have to decide very quickly, is this something I'm going to participate in, or is this something I'm not going to participate in? So, it's kind of one of those things. Fighting is, in general, it's not a great thing, but for the right cause, it's a great thing. So you have to use some discernment there.
So did you get caught with a haymaker? Did you catch somebody with one?
I've probably been caught more than I've given out. So.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I don't like earlier today, that conversation I was having with another person. I'm like, he was like, I just don't like getting punched in the face. So I stay away from anything that may happen athletically.
I've taken way more punches breaking up fights than anything else. So.
Yeah. And that's something that we need to do as guys is we need to be aware and protect. And when it's time to go, it's time to go, and we need to be ready. So when that time comes, we do need to be ready so that we can make a decision as opposed to just sitting on the sidelines watching it all happen.
Yeah,
whatever that is.
Absolutely.
In each area of life. So that's parenting, that's in our marriages and our faith life. When it's time to go, we need to be ready to go. We got to be prepared. We got to put the work in, do the practice.
Absolutely.
Well, before we sign off, have you got any tips for dads? And then if you have a challenge for dads, we always like to end out with a challenge also.
So my tip, let's see. How about this? My tip is to establish a morning routine for yourself if you don't have one already. And in that morning routine, incorporate scripture, incorporate prayer, incorporate some form of gratitude, and just call it good, right? We could go on and on about morning routine, but if you're doing those three things, just for from reference, this retreat that I went on, prayer is one of those things where I struggled sometimes because it's hard for me to sit and pray for a really long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
But one of these wise men who was there told me to begin every day, first thing you do, on your knees. Like, actually just get on your knees. There's something about that posture of being on your knees that does not distract you from the only thing that you should be doing, which is praying. And it doesn't last long. I mean, it may be 90 seconds is all I'm doing. But that's been a big difference maker for me, is getting out of bed and getting right on my knees, and spending a minute there. My
And you've got a
challenge.
special spot in your house where you set aside so that you can be uninterrupted and get into prayer life. And your kids have asked your wife, "Hey, where's dad?"
Okay. Yeah, of course you're asking about this. So yeah, there's a closet in my house, and it's called Dad's Closet. And that's where I go to have my moment of solitude every morning. So, solitude is another thing that dads don't get that's important, but it's another podcast in itself. But yeah, that's where I go every morning. So that's where my reading happens. That's where my breathing happens. That's where my reflection and prayer time happens, is in that closet. And I shut the door and it's just me. So
Yeah, such a great
that's where I
example
go.
for our kids, because they see that, where's dad, what's he doing, and it goes from there. So they are interested, and they want to
Yeah,
follow after us. So they ask a bunch of questions. It's a great teaching moment.
I love it. Yeah. My challenge. Okay. My challenge for dads is to join my fasting community. That's it. Join my fasting community, and actually take it seriously. My challenge is to take it seriously for 2 weeks and just see if you don't notice a big difference in your life.
Absolutely. Well, I already
Yeah.
signed up, so I'll actually
Okay.
activate it. I'll actually start doing it as opposed to paying attention to it. So, and I'll get your tips after we're done on a couple of different questions I
Okay.
specifically have, short
Okay.
ones.
Yeah.
Guys, one way to help get into scripture that could be an easy way for you to do it, inside the Journey of a Christian Dad Facebook community, we have a Bible devotional that we do. And it sounds devotional, just sounds a little weak or whatever. Don't worry about the word. We can call it study if you want. And in that, there's some specific reading that we do. A couple of scriptures, takes maybe 5 minutes, and then guys literally type in whatever's on their heart, whatever they're going through life, and they really open up inside this Bible devotional. It's on a YouVerse app right on your phone, real simple and easy to do. So if you're looking for a way to get started, you don't even have to type comments in if you don't want. However, you'll see real guys with real stuff going on that are not meek in the sense of weak and wimpy. These are real dudes that are strong. These guys are doing big things in life and making big strides. And anyway, feel free to jump into the community, and you'll be able to access the Bible devotional or Bible study. And it's totally free. It doesn't cost you any money at all, the group or the study. So love the tip on the morning routine. That is so crucial for me. And the fasting, guys, I stayed away from it for such a long time because it seems like old or seems like it's difficult. It's not. It's really, really simple to do.
And
So
it saves you a lot of money.
it does save you a lot of money for sure.
It saves you a lot of money. I mean, no joke. Just plug in how much you think you spend on a meal for just yourself and multiply that by, let's call it 6. Okay. And then multiply that 6 by 4 and multiply that by 12. That's a lot of money. I mean, we're talking thousands of dollars a year that you're going to save as you get healthier. It's
Man.
it's kind of a no-brainer.
So Shawn just challenged you to save thousands of dollars a year without really, well, not without harming your life, with helping your life. So this will be something that helps your
Exactly.
life, and you save thousands of bucks. So
Exactly.
what a fantastic challenge.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time today, and so does our community. Like, just being able to hang out with you has blessed my day, and it'll bless my week and month, and be one of the highlights of my year.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shawn.